Well, good morning, Meadowbrook Church. How are we doing this morning? It's good to see you. It's good to be with you. My name is Bryan Marvel. As we get going this morning, we're going to do something just a little bit different this morning. Usually we project the passage that we're looking at on the screen behind us. We're not going to do that. In part, it's because I've been thinking a lot about how is it that we engage with God's Word and how do we encourage our people to be more actively engaged. And one of the ways we're going to do that is through encouraging you to look at a Bible, an actual book. I mean, if you have a device and you look on your device, totally fine. But just as a way for us to be in regular practice of engaging physically with the Scriptures in our own hands. So you'll find it if you're looking at one of the in-house Bibles, like they said, page 1137. And we're going to look at Romans verses 1 and 2 of chapter 12. So when I was in grad school, I had a friend named Dave. And my friend Dave had this unique ability to find work, to make extra money in grad school that wasn't a normal, steady, part-time job. Like, he did focus groups, he reviewed products and services, did walkthroughs of different businesses to be like a secret shopper. And one of the things that he did was he sold this product called the stick. Anybody ever heard of this stick before? It's an exercise tool that helps specifically runners recover from long runs. So you would go out on a run, you'd come back, and it looks kind of like a rolling pin, and you just roll your muscles, and it's supposed to help with the recovery and your stamina, and you can do it before or after you run. And so he would carry one of these around campus, and he'd often have it sticking out of his workout bag or whatever, and people would be like, "What's that?" And he'd pull it out, and he'd be like, "Ching," like a sword, like, "Let me show you." And he'd sit people down, and he'd start rolling their legs, and he'd talk to them about it, and he would get super excited about the stick. And he would regularly say, "This thing has changed my life." I was like, really? I mean, really? So he would normally sell them at expos, like pre-race expos. If you're to sign up for a half marathon or a full marathon, you have a day where you go get your packet and your number, and you get a bag of all kinds of promo swag. And usually there are booths and companies trying to sell products and services to runners. And so he would have one of those. The company who made the stick, called The Stick, would have a booth at these expos, and he would just be a rep, and he would demonstrate them for people, sell them to people. And so one day he needed a partner, and he's like, "Bryan, would you come and do this with me?" And I was like, I have no idea how to do this. And he was like, "Bro," he always called me bro. He's like, "Bro, these things sell themselves." I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Just sit somebody in a chair, roll it on their calf, just on one leg, have them walk around in a circle, ask them if they feel the difference from one leg to the next, and boom, you'll get a sale." So we show up that day, we start doing these demos, and people are buying them like crazy. And I worked 2 or 3 hours and walked home with $200, $250, and I was like, holy cow, this thing does really change people's lives. Okay, I get it, right? But the thing that was so surprising to me about that morning wasn't the money that I made, but was how many people who really did come up and say, they'd walk past and they'd have one, and they'd be like, "The stick, that thing changed my life." Or people would come with their friend and be like, "This is the thing I was telling you about that changed my life." I heard that all morning, that the stick had changed people's lives, and they were so excited to tell about it. Which brings us to our question for this morning is, how's your life? Are there things in your life that you wish were different? Maybe it's not things about your exercise recovery, but maybe there are things in your life that you wish were different. Maybe you find yourself with this deep-seated anger that just surfaces unexpectedly. Or you find yourself controlled by jealousy, and you see what other people have, and you're like, "That should be mine." Or maybe there's this deep insecurity. You feel like you're walking around every day and you're just faking it all, and you're like, "Everybody can see through me." What is it that you want to change in your life? And do you think it's possible that it could be different? See, sometimes we live with this mentality there's no way. There are all these things in my life that I can't change. There's no way that this could be different. This is just the hand that I was dealt in life, and I just have to learn how to deal with it and move on. But is that really true? I mean, sure, there are things in your life that you can't change. There are circumstances that you, for whatever reason, don't have the ability to change. But even in those places, the scriptures tell us that transformation in our life is possible. And sometimes the things that we do want to see change in our life actually happen in those places where there are circumstances that we can't control. Sometimes those are the best seasons and scenarios in life for change to take place. So what is it? What is it for you that you wish was different? And is it possible? As we jump into Romans 12 today, Paul's going to give us 4 practices. There are 4 things that he's going to say that we can engage with in order to see what he calls transformation take place in our life. 4 things. And our passage starts saying this: "Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy." Now, chapter 12 marks the new section, a new section in the book of Romans that will go chapter 12 all the way to the end through chapter 16. And if chapters 1 through 11 were characterized by dense theological reflections, lots of difficult, awkward references to the Old Testament, this last section, 12 through 16, is highly practical. It's full of all sorts of directives and instructives that are very straightforward. And Paul is really saying, this is how you are called to live. This is the theology of what we believe. And now he's in this section where he's like, and here's how you are called to live that out and live. And you see that right from the get-go in verse 1 and 2. What he's saying here, the very first thing that we are called to do, the first practice, is recognize God's mercy. He's saying, in view of God's mercy, in light of God's mercy. Now, at some level, calling on God's mercy here is a reference to what has just come before chapters 12. So chapter 9 through 11 has this consistent thread of God's mercy woven through it. So at one level, it's a callback to what they have just talked about. 7 times in chapter 9 through 11, Paul will use the term mercy. And at the very end especially, he will use it 3 or 4 times. So in some ways, it's a reference to what has just come before it. But you could also say God's mercy here is a summary of everything that Paul has said up to this point. Everything in chapters 1 through 11, basically saying God's mercy has been the theme of everything I've been talking about the whole time, most notably seen in the gospel in the person of Jesus Christ, because there is no better demonstration of God's mercy than in and through the person of Jesus Christ, most notably his sacrificial death for us on the cross. Because it's through Jesus sacrificing himself that forgiveness of sins is extended to the entire world. It's through Jesus' death and resurrection that we have peace with God. We have been reconciled and made right with God. We are in good standing with him. It is through Jesus that we have hope that God is in the process of making all things new, and that even includes us. In view of God's mercy, in view of God's goodness, in view of the gospel of Jesus Christ that Paul has been talking about the whole time, that is the power of salvation for everyone who believes. And the assumption of the scriptures is that God's mercy is continual. It's steadfast. It's ongoing in your life. It's not a one-and-done event back in the past when Jesus died and rose. It's not a one-time event when you receive the message of the gospel and find yourself entering into the family of God. God's mercy is daily and continual. We read it in Lamentations 3. It says, "The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases." It never stops. It just keeps coming. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. So that means God's mercy is new to you today. Today. So the question is, have you recognized it today? If this first practice is recognizing God's mercy, what we read is that it's a daily practice. It's something we engage with daily. So that means, have you been able to recognize it? I don't know what time you woke up this morning. It's 11:01. Have you been able to recognize the mercy of God in your life from the time you woke up to now? Have you conditioned yourself to ask the question, where do I see God at work in my life? Moment by moment, day by day. Where do I see that God is being good and faithful to me? It's new every morning. And it's easy to get focused on things that are not going your way. But even in those places, it's easy to see that God is faithful, if we have eyes to see it. And the word here for mercy is oktirmos, which is, there's different words for mercy in the New Testament. The emphasis of this word is a deep feeling word. So it's not just that God does good things for you. It's not just that he has done action on your behalf. It's that he has these feelings associated with it, like, oh, this child of mine right here, let me tell you about this child. I love this child of mine. There's this deep sense of like, oh, this one right here, oh, this one is so precious to me. You are the children of God, and he sees you and views you with great delight. It's not just that he does good things for you, but he loves you and has compassion towards you. You see this demonstrated in Jesus all throughout his ministry in the Gospels. He'll come upon crowds, and the description of these crowds are that they are harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd, and Jesus will have compassion on them. And he will long and desire to see them in a place of wellness and wholeness. God's mercies to you are daily. The question is, do you have the ability to recognize it? And so the invitation of this passage, in part, isn't simply to recognize God's mercy, but the invitation is also to respond. To respond. He's saying, in view of God's mercy, the call is to respond. And how do we respond? We read, to offer our bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. In view of God's mercy, essentially, offer yourself to him. Now, what Paul is doing here is he's calling on the Old Testament imagery of the sacrificial system that takes place in Jewish culture. Right? If you were to rewind to the book of Leviticus, this riveting book about all sorts of sacrifices that the Israelites have, you can read it all, how they give them, when they give them, why they give them, the types of things that they bring. There were all of these sacrifices that the Israelites were called to bring in order to engage with God. Now, part of what Paul says throughout all of his writing in the New Testament is that because of the sacrifice of Jesus, we no longer have to engage in the sacrifices of the Old Testament. Jesus is the once and for all sacrifice that has fulfilled all the other sacrifices, making the system on the whole obsolete. But the thing that we are to bring to God is ourselves, our whole selves, our whole life. The call of our faith is to offer not just our physical bodies, but everything we have to God. Eugene Peterson, in his translation of the Bible called The Message, says this when he translates Romans 12, verse 1. He says, so here's what I want you to do. God helping you, take your everyday, ordinary life. You're sleeping, you're eating, you're going to work, you're walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. He's saying all that you are, all that you have, it's time to view your entire life in part as a gift from God that should be used on his behalf, offered back to him. Your recreation life, your vocation life, your family, your house, your resources, your time, your money, everything is a good gift from God to you. And so we are called to offer it back to him. And so the question is, what are you giving yourself to? Right? We are all giving ourselves to something. We are all offering our entire life to something or someone. What is it for you that you are giving your life to? What is it that you are giving your life for? We were all created to find meaning and significance in our lives in some source outside ourselves. We weren't created to find meaning, significance within ourselves, but outside ourselves. And we're all going to something. We're all offering ourselves to something. And so the question is, what? What is that thing for you? Now, you probably could say, like, yeah, I know that I'm supposed to give my life to God. I mean, it says it right here in Scripture, but are you really doing that? Are you really giving yourself to God? And the question is, if not, how do you know what it is? How do you know what it is you are giving yourself to? And I think the way that you figure that out is you track two things in your life. You track your desire and you track your fear. You follow your desire and you follow your fear to the source of those things that spark your desire and spark your fear, and you will find the thing that you're offering yourself to. Here's an example. There's a band called Mute Math. That's kind of like this indie rock band from New Orleans. And in their self-titled album, their first album, which was back in 2002, they have a song called You Are Mine. And in this song, the lyrics, I think, perfectly capture what it means for us to be human in pursuing the desire, some desire that we have. So I'm going to play you about a 90-second clip of this song and listen to the lyrics, and they'll be on the screen so you can read along and see if it resonates with you like, yes, this is truly how we as humans live. Go ahead, take a listen. So that song goes on for 4 more minutes, and the only lyrics left in that song, basically, is the chorus. You are mine. For 4 minutes, over and over. And I think that's intentional, right? I think that's a brilliantly placed 4-minute section to say we have these things in our life that we obsess over. And I think the songwriter is trying to show that whatever that thing is for you, we repeat that over and over. That's the thing that I need. That's the thing that I want. That's the thing that I think will complete my life, and I will do whatever it takes. I will obsess over it. I will call it an addiction. Whatever I need to do, I will pursue that thing. And once I have that thing or that someone in my life, then I will be complete. Yes, I have to have it. Right? That's the way our hearts are wired. Right? So what is it that you desire? What is it that you're pursuing, thinking that once I achieve it, once I have it in my grasp, once I acquire it, life will be complete? Now, if you've lived enough of life, you know that when those things are out there for you and you are pursuing them, there are moments when you actually acquire them and they satisfy you for a hot second. And then what? You're like, I need something else. That didn't fulfill me. That didn't complete me like I thought it would. And now I got to go get another fix somewhere. See, we're all offering ourselves to something, trying to satisfy the desires of our heart. And not only is it our desires that fuel us, it's also our fear. So contrast one band, Mute Math, with another pop icon, Taylor Swift. In 2020, Taylor Swift put out a documentary from Netflix called Miss Americana. And because it was the middle of the pandemic and I didn't have anything else to do, I watched it. I was like, let's see what Taylor's up to these days. How's Taylor navigating life, right? And there's this scene early on, probably within the first 6 minutes, where she's sitting in her living room, she's in her PJs, and she's waiting a call from her manager. This was 2019, so it's like a year before the documentary is released. And the call she's waiting for is her manager to tell her who is nominated for what Grammys from the year prior, right? So the Grammys, all the award shows at the beginning of that year, reflecting on everything that was made last year. And in 2018, she put out an album called Reputation. And so she's waiting for her manager to call to tell her what categories and what awards she's been nominated for. And she picks up the phone, her manager calls. This is all filmed in the documentary, and her manager tells her that you are not nominated for anything. You are not nominated for any of these categories. You have not been nominated. And Taylor Swift's first response is, okay, this is fine. This is okay. I'll just have to make a better record. And then her manager's like, no. Reputation, the name of her album, is a great record. She goes, no, it's fine. I will just have to make a better record. And you can see that she's choking back the tears. She's disappointed because up until this point in her life, all Taylor Swift has done is won. I mean, if there's anybody who's the epitome of young, quick success in the music industry, it is Taylor Swift. I mean, she just shot like a rocket to the top, setting records, winning all the awards, being a Nashville's prized, poster child of success in the music industry. And here she's now not nominated for anything. And her impulse is, I'll just have to make a better record. There's a quote I found by her that perfectly captures what was going on in her heart when she received this news. This isn't part of the documentary, or she doesn't say this in this moment, but she is quoted by saying, I'm intimidated by the fear of being average. Average for Taylor Swift is not getting nominated for a Grammy. Average for Taylor Swift is not being always on the top. And there's this fear that if I'm not up here, if I'm not nominated, if I'm not winning, if I'm not setting records, I'm average, and that terrifies me. So follow your desire, follow your fear, and it will lead you to the source of the object that you're pursuing. And do you know what the Bible calls that? The biblical word for that is worship. It's the thing that you worship. Paul says, and this is your true and proper worship. Meaning, when you offer yourself to God, rather than all of these other things in life, that is your true and proper worship. Because we were created to love God more than anything else. The Bible uses the term the fear of the Lord to capture what it means to engage with God, to have reverence and respect for Him, understanding who He is as the creator of the world. When we love God, when we desire Him, when we properly fear Him, that is worship in His eyes. But we don't just worship God. There's all of these other things in our world that are vying for our worship. Now, here's what's interesting about why Paul, I think in part, uses this sacrificial imagery in this moment. Because in the sacrificial system in the Old Testament, the end of every sacrifice is death, right? I mean, go read the book of Leviticus. There is blood spilled on every page of that book. I mean, there's blood. The blood is just flowing through the temple. Everything's getting split open, drained out, and burned up. I mean, it ends in death for every sacrifice. But what Paul is saying here is that when you offer yourself to God, you're not a dead sacrifice. You're a what? A living sacrifice. Offering yourself to anything in this world that incites desire or fear will probably end in death. That moment for Taylor Swift sitting on her couch learning that she wasn't nominated probably felt like death to her. But when you offer yourself to God, it results in life, in true everlasting life. So the first practice, Paul says, if you want change in your life, is to recognize God's mercy in your life. The second practice is to offer yourself to God as a living sacrifice. And the third practice is to be distinct from the world. He goes on to say in verse 2, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but rather be transformed. Okay, you ready for a little congregation participation? And receiving the question and hearing the question, what is the pattern of our world? What would you say? Feel free to raise your hand, just shout it out. What would you say is the pattern? Paul's saying, don't conform to the pattern of the world. Well, what is that? For us in our culture, what is the pattern of our world? Self is the center. We're selfish people. What else? Okay, that was like 5 answers. Let's try it one more time right here. Pride. What else? Or something over here. Power. Performance. Position, prestige, control. Anybody else? What was that? Meism, yeah. It's this, hey, everything revolves around me. My comfort, my convenience. I'm going to be tolerant of everybody. I'm going to be driven by success at some level. I'm going to pull myself up by my own bootstraps. I'm going to be an individual. I'm going to be autonomous. I want to grab as much power as I can. I want to get more money in my life. I want to climb the corporate ladder. I want to be successful. All these things. This is the pattern of our world. Now, it would be really easy at this point to say, I'm just going to condemn the world, right? It'd be really easy for me in this sermon to say, the world is bad. Don't go be like the world. But the reality is, all those things we just listed, we do those things, don't we? Like if you're honest with yourself, you wake up some mornings and you're like, man, I just want to be in control. Like I just want everybody else to know that I'm always right. And if I could have a little bit more power in my life, everything would align perfectly. Or you wake up and you think to yourself, man, if I just had a little bit more money in my bank account, like things would be so much easier for me. Or there's this thing over here that I want, that I see everybody else having, and I should have it too, right? Like we do all those things. We pursue and we want and we desire all those things we just listed. And what Paul is saying here is he's saying, don't be conformed to that. So I have some Play-Doh here. And, you know, when I think of conforming to something, I think of like clay or Play-Doh being pushed into a mold, right? Because when something is pushed into a mold, like it's just passive. Like you're not really thinking about like what's going to come out. You're just like smushing some stuff in and you're like, oh, what's going to come out of this? And you're like, oh, I don't know. It's a chicken wing, right? It's just what it is, right? Or you think to yourself, yeah, I'm just going along to get along, and I'm just going to follow the crowd and do what everybody else is doing and just kind of become like what I see around me. And the thing that comes out as I'm passive is a carrot. It's a food mold is what this is, right? It's for little kids. But it's that image of like just getting pushed into something and just being okay with what is ever coming out when it's all done. Bacon, right? And so now compare that with this. I have a picture. This is a little pitcher or vase that my daughter made. And I love this thing. It sits above our sink. It's this little pitcher, this little vase. And I love it because there's so much intentionality in that little piece. Like she shaped it in a certain way. She colored certain parts of it. She put texture and imprints on it. And you can pick it up and you can pour something out of it. You could put flowers in it. I mean, if I had little Play-Doh molds around my house on display, you'd be like, that's weird, right? I don't know about this guy. If I was displaying them as art. But to see that somewhere around my house, you're like, oh yeah, like that's sweet. Like his daughter intentionally put that together. What Paul is saying is don't conform to the world. Don't be passive and just be squished into the mold of this world and come out being whatever. Rather, be intentional in the way you're ordering your life so that you can be distinct. He says, offer yourself as a living sacrifice so that you can be holy. The term holy literally means to be set apart, to be distinct, to be different, to be unique. And we are called to not conform, but to be transformed, to be set apart and distinct. So how do you do that? How is it that you resist the passivity of just going along with the world and the pattern of this world so that you can be intentional and be set apart from the world? Well, Paul says it doesn't happen through trying hard. It's not as though we just buckle down and try harder. It's not as though we work to perform spiritually and impress other people. He says the way that you undergo transformation, he says, is by, in verse 2, the renewing of your mind. By the renewing of your mind. Now, sometimes we interpret that to think, well, that just means I need to know more. I need to acquire more knowledge. I need to get more info about God, who he is, and how I'm supposed to follow him. And the more that I know, the better my life will be. Now, knowledge isn't necessarily bad, but more knowledge does not equate transformation in your life. Paul will say in 1 Corinthians 8, verse 1, that knowledge actually can puff up. I mean, it can make you proud. It can make you arrogant. Look at everything that I know, right? So more info doesn't necessarily equal transformation in your life. Renewing your mind actually starts with repentance. It actually starts with repentance. The word repentance in Greek is metanoia. It's two words that are put together. It's the word meta, which means with. It's a preposition, which means with. Noia is the word for mind or thinking. And so literally, the word repentance means with your mind, with your thinking. A renewal of your mind is repentance. Sometimes we think repentance is making myself feel bad for all the wrong things I've done. It's feeling really sorrowful and guilty because God's mad at me. True repentance is basically a change of mind. It's thinking differently. You could say it this way. If you want spiritual transformation in your life, change in your life starts with changing your mind. Change in your life starts with changing your mind. And you might think to yourself, okay, so changing my mind about what? And I would say changing your mind about the stories we tell ourselves. See, we are storied people. We inhabit and we embody stories all the time. We're constantly telling stories. We're constantly receiving stories. Our stories that we live in, the stories that we tell each other, shape us. And so the question is, what story are you living by? What story are you trying to inhabit? What story are you after? And there's a Cadillac commercial that I think captures this perfectly. It's a commercial from, I think, the Super Bowl in 2014. And I think it captures the essence of the pattern of this world in some way in our culture. Go ahead and take a look.
Why do we work so hard? For what? For this? For stuff? Other countries, they work, they stroll home, they stop by the cafe, they take August off. Off. Why aren't you like that? Why aren't we like that? Because we're crazy, driven, hard-working believers, that's why. Those other countries think we're nuts. Whatever. Were the Wright brothers insane? Bill Gates, Les Paul, Ali. Were we nuts when we pointed to the moon? That's right. We went up there, and you know what we got? Bored. So we left. Got a car up there, left the keys in it. Do you know why? Because we're the only ones going back up there, that's why. But I digress. It's pretty simple. You work hard, you create your own luck, and you gotta believe anything is possible. As for all the stuff, that's the upside of only taking 2 weeks off in August. N'est-ce pas?
Anybody want to go buy a Cadillac now? I mean, that commercial is dripping with arrogance, right? It is dripping with pride. We're the best. We got to the moon and we got bored, and so we left our car because we're the only ones going back. I mean, it captures this essence of like hard work, determinism. I'm going to make my life what I want it to be, and then the gravy on top is going to be all the stuff and money that I can achieve with my life, that I can get with my life. And this is a common story that is just out there as to what true living is all about. And so if we are going to renew our minds, if we are going to think differently, the call is to think differently about the stories that we embody, the stories that we tell ourselves, the stories that we are pursuing. And if it's not this specific story, the question is, what are we telling ourselves? What is the story that I'm telling myself? What is the story that I want to inhabit? Because I think as I do, I will find my heart being fulfilled. So renewing your mind is about telling yourself the story of God's mercy rather than the stories of our world. It's telling yourself the story of God's mercy and then specifically responding to it by offering yourself, your whole self, to God. And as you do, you will find that your desires will mirror the desires of God. That He will shape the desires of your heart. So you pursue the things in this world that He too is after. And you won't have to be controlled by fear, but now you'll be controlled by love, specifically God's love for you. And do you know what the number one command in the scriptures is? It's to not be afraid. We don't have to fear the things of this world. We don't have to give in to them. We don't have to fear whatever comes our way in response. The call is to give ourselves to God, knowing that He will shape us to be more like Him, and you'll become wise. Because He finishes this passage saying, then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. Now, God's will is a very kind of ambiguous thing. What does it mean what is God's will? It's interesting in 1 Thessalonians, there are two places where Paul gets really explicit about it. In verse 18 of chapter 5 in 1 Thessalonians, Paul says, and this is God's will, to give thanks to Him. It's, again, recognizing God's mercy and goodness in your life, recognizing that everything I have is a good gift from Him, so therefore my call should be to offer it back to Him. And the other thing you find in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 13, he says, the will of God is this, to be sanctified, which is just simply to be more and more like Jesus. To understand that your life is about reflecting His life in the world around us. And so one of the ways that we tell ourselves the story of God's mercy is through the Lord's Supper. It's in the communion meal that we find the mercy of God so clearly on display. That Jesus gave Himself, that He offered Himself as the sacrifice that fulfills all the sacrifices. That is the pointer to which every sacrifice before it was about. He offers Himself as a way to say, Follow my example. Be like me. Let my love be the thing that drives your life, and don't live in fear from the world around you, because your eternity, your life, is secured in mine.